You're not waking up tired because you didn't sleep enough. You're waking up tired because your energy never actually stopped working, even when your body did. And that's the part no one really talks about. We've normalized feeling drained before the day even begins, like it's just part of being an adult. But it's not. You open your eyes, and there's already a weight, not heavy enough to stop you, but just enough to slow everything down. Your thoughts feel crowded before you even move. Your mind starts scanning what needs to be done, what you didn't finish, what you should have done better. And somehow you're already behind before your feet touch the floor, so you reach for your phone. Not because you want to, but because it's easier than sitting with that feeling, easier than silence, and within seconds your attention is gone. Pulled into messages, updates, other people's lives, other people's urgency, and just like that your energy is no longer yours. And here's the strange part. Nothing dramatic happened, no big mistake, no major failure. Just a slow, quiet leak happening every single day in small moments you barely notice. And over time it adds up until exhaustion feels like your default state. Most people think they need more discipline, more motivation, a better routine. But what if that's not the problem? What if the real issue is that your energy is constantly being drained by things you've learned to accept? Because when something drains you slowly enough, you stop questioning it, you adapt, you call it normal, you build your life around it. And that's how people end up feeling tired all the time without knowing exactly why. Well, before we talk about fixing anything, there's one idea to sit with. Maybe you're not lacking energy. Maybe your system is just leaking it in ways you haven't seen yet. You don't notice it at first because it looks like normal behavior. You wake up, check your phone, reply to a few things, scroll a little. Nothing extreme, just a few minutes. But those few minutes quietly set the tone for everything that follows. Your attention gets pulled in different directions before it even has a chance to stabilize. Then you sit down to do something important, and almost immediately there's resistance. Not because the task is impossible, but because your mind is already fragmented. So you switch tabs, check something quick, open another window, maybe reorganize your to-do list, maybe watch something that feels useful, and hours pass without real progress. Not because you're lazy, but because your focus never had a clean starting point throughout the day. It continues in subtle ways. You respond to messages you didn't really need to answer right away. You agree to things you didn't fully want to do. You keep conversations going just to avoid awkwardness. And each time it seems small, almost harmless. But each one takes a little bit of energy with it. What makes it harder is that none of this feels like a problem in the moment. It feels productive. It feels responsible. It feels like you're doing what you're supposed to do. But underneath that surface, there's a constant drain because your energy is being spent reactively instead of intentionally. And when the day ends, you're not physically exhausted, but mentally scattered, like your attention has been stretched. Across too many places, you try to rest, but your mind doesn't slow down. It replays conversations, unfinished tasks, things you should have said, things you still need to do. So instead of resting, you reach for your phone again, just to distract yourself from the noises. Is where the cycle locks in. Because what you call rest isn't actually recovery. It's just more input, more stimulation, more things pulling at your attention. So your system never resets. It just keeps running in the background, so when you wake up the next day and still feel tired, it's confusing because technically you rested. But in reality, your energy was never protected. It was constantly being used, redirected, and slowly drained by a system that was never designed to preserve it. At some point, you start to notice a pattern. Not all at once, just small moments where things don't quite add up. You realize it's not the big tasks that drain you. It's everything in between, the constant switching, the low-level noise, the small decisions that never seem important but never really stop. And then the thought hits, maybe the problem isn't that you don't have enough energy. Maybe the problem is that your energy never gets the chance to stay in one place long. Enough to build anything meaningful that changes how you see everything. Because instead of asking why you can't focus, You start asking where your focus is going. Instead of blaming your lack of discipline, you start noticing how often your attention is being pulled away before it even settles. There's a simple idea behind this. Your brain is not designed for constant redirection. Every time you switch tasks, check something, or respond to a new input, there is a small cost, not enough to notice instantly, but enough to accumulate. And over time, that cost becomes fatigue. This is why you can spend an entire day doing things and still feel like nothing moved forward. Because your energy was fragmented, not concentrated. And fragmented energy doesn't create momentum. It just creates exhaustion. The shift happens when you stop trying to push harder and start protecting your attention. Because attention is where your energy flows. And where your energy flows is what shapes your day. Think of it like this. If your attention is scattered across 10 different directions, you feel busy but empty. But if your attention stays in one place, even briefly, something starts to build. Not instantly, but consistently. So the realization is simple, but not easy to accept. You don't need more energy. You need fewer leaks. And until you reduce those leaks, no amount of motivation will feel like enough. So instead of trying to fix everything at once, you use a simple system, not to push yourself harder, but to stop the constant leaking. 3 steps: reduce, protect, and direct. First, reduce input. Your brain cannot focus if it's constantly reacting, so you create one small rule. Delay your first input of the day. No phone, no messages, no scrolling for at least 10 minutes after waking up. Just sit, breathe. Let your mind come online without interruption. It will feel uncomfortable at first, but that discomfort is your system resetting. Not a problem to fix. Second, protect your boundaries, not in a dramatic way, just in one small decision. Pick one situation where you usually say yes automatically and pause. Give yourself a few seconds and choose intentionally. If the answer is no, say it simply, without adding explanations to make it easier for others. This is not about being difficult. It's about keeping your energy from being spent where it doesn't need to go. Third, direct your energy instead of spreading it across multiple tasks. Choose one thing that actually matters and give it a short, focus window. Even 20 minutes without switching is enough. No checking, no multitasking, just one direction. Because focus is not about time. It's about continuity. And continuity is what allows energy to build instead of scatter. Imagine a simple stick figure sitting at a desk with arrows pulling it in every direction. Notifications, tasks, messages, thoughts. Now remove most of those arrows. Not all, just enough. Suddenly the same figure is calmer, more stable, not because it has more energy, but because it's no longer losing it constantly. This system is not about doing more, it's about removing what drains you so that what remains can actually work. If you keep this system simple and repeat it, something subtle begins to change. Not overnight, not in a dramatic way, but in how your days start to feel. Your mornings become quieter, not perfect, but less rushed. Your thoughts don't scatter as quickly, and you notice you can stay with one thing a little longer than before. You begin finishing small tasks instead of constantly starting new ones, and that creates a different kind of momentum. Not intense, not overwhelming, just steady. And that steadiness matters more than bursts of motivation that disappear after a few days. Over time, your energy stops feeling unpredictable. You're not relying on feeling inspired to take action because your system doesn't depend on mood. It depends on structure, and structure reduces friction, which means you spend less energy deciding and more energy doing. You also start to feel less mental noise because you're no longer feeding your brain constant input from every direction. Your attention becomes a little more stable, and with that stability comes clarity. Not all at once, but enough to notice that things feel lighter. What changes the most is not your output, but your relationship with yourself. You stop blaming yourself for being inconsistent. You stop calling yourself lazy because you can see the difference between having no energy and losing energy. And once that distinction becomes clear, the guilt starts to fade. You won't suddenly become hyperproductive, and that's not the goal. The goal is to feel less drained at the end of the day, to have enough energy left for things that matter, to not feel like you're constantly catching up with your own life. And this is where consistency shows its value, not through intensity, but through repetition. Small actions, protected attention, reduced noise, done over and over again, until it becomes your default. And when it does, progress stops feeling forced and starts feeling natural. So in the end, it's not about becoming more disciplined. It's not about waking up earlier or forcing yourself into a perfect routine. It's about noticing where your energy is quietly disappearing and deciding that it matters enough to protect. Because the version of you that feels calm, focused, and present isn't something you have to build from scratch. It's already there. It's just been buried under layers of noise, distraction, and small daily leaks that were never meant to. Be permanent. You don't need to fix yourself. You don't need to become someone else. You just need a system that works with your limits instead of against them. One that respects your attention, your energy, and your capacity as something finite, not something you can endlessly stretch. And when you start doing that, even in small ways, things begin to shift, not all at once, but enough to feel different. Enough to remind you that change doesn't come from intensity. It comes from consistency, from small actions repeated in the right directions. So something in this felt familiar. If you've been stuck in that loop of feeling busy but drained, maybe it's not a motivation problem. Maybe it's just a system that needs adjusting. You don't need a new life. You just need a better way to use the one you already have. If you've ever felt this, comment system. And if you want to keep refining how you manage your time, your focus, and your energy, subscribe, and we'll keep it simple. One small improvement at a time.